Namaste. I would like to welcome everyone to the webinar hosted by NIMSME, jointly organized with CIPS, ASCI, and Sumanati on the topic Role of FPOs in Rebuilding Agricultural Supply Chain During COVID-19. I would request all the participants to keep their microphones on mute while a speaker is presenting to avoid unnecessary disturbance. The question and answer will be at the end of the webinar. To ask a question, please send the question along with the name of speaker to the moderator privately on the chat. We have invited four experts and an in-house faculty member for today's webinar. So, without any further ado, we invite our first speaker, Dr. Shobna K. Patnaik, DG ASCI. Prior to his stint as the Secretary for the Department of Agriculture, Cooperation and Farmers' Welfare, Government of India, Dr. Patnaik held the position of Additional Chief Secretary, Home Department, Government of Karnataka from July 2013 to February 2016, and Principal Secretary in Energy Department, Government of Karnataka from Jan 2013 to June 2013. During the period 2009 to 12, he was posted as Minister of Agriculture, Embassy of India, Rome, and alternate permanent representative of India to UN agencies in Rome. Dr. Patnaik held the position of member Finance Committee from 2009 to 11 and 2011 to 13 and chairperson of Committee on Agriculture FAO from 2010 to 12 and president of Executive Board WFP 2012 in Rome. Sir, you may please proceed with your session now.
Good morning, everybody, all the panelists and the distinguished participants. At the very outset, I must compliment the National Institute for Micro, Small and Medium Enterprise, the Director General of the Institute, Madam Glory Swarupa, for having organized this webinar in association with SIPS and Samanuti organization, which is very famous for FPOs. And I am also grateful to the distinguished panelists who have found some time to be present. We have all come to really hear from them as to how the APOs are doing, and more so at a time when COVID is very much prevalent in our ecosystem. Now, I would say that FPOs, as you all know, occupy a central position in the ecosystem of the farmers and also in the rural development space. The farmer producer organization, as it is known, basically originated several years back, but it is only very recently that this has been recognized as by the government in a very big way. All of you are familiar that very recently the government announced a scheme to set up 10,000 farmer producer organizations in this country. Now, why this special focus on FPOs? What is the problem today faced by farmers, and why these organizations are important to us? We all know if someone can really make an impact in our villages, in the rural space, then they are actually the farmers, because the farmers have got the experience of. Hello, can you hear me? Hello,
Yes, sir.
can you hear? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Uh, See, if something has to be delivered at the field, we have to place reliance on community organizations. Community-based organizations and institutions are basically like what you know, the self-help groups, it started joint liability groups, but later on we felt they should be actually organized as farmer producer organizations, and this movement started. The primary impetus to this was given by the Government of India through the Small Farmers Agri Consortium, which actually, due to their efforts, close to 7,000 FPOs have today been set up. The NABARD, in a small way, started their activities in the year 2011-12 And today NABARD is also a major player who is actually propping up these FPOs and giving them all sorts of assistance. In a way, the small farmer today is like a mini entrepreneur because he not only produces, he also runs from pillar to post to ensure that what he produces actually gets sold in the market. And that means he has not only to produce and take it directly to the market, he may have to do little value addition. He may work like a small entrepreneur. He has to do marketing. He has to look after finances. And he has to also build relationship with different client groups. And at the individual level, a farmer cannot do all this. He therefore, it is better if the farmers get organized and they form what is called the farmer producer organizations. Many people think that farmer producer organization means they are only they are the organizations which can be formed under the Companies Act. But though that is the original intention when government amended the Companies Act and formed the FPOs, later on we found that the cooperative societies, which is also which is also having a group of farmers, can also be treated as farmer producer organizations. So today, when we say FPO, we mean actually three distinct groups. One is a group of farmers who have organized themselves as a company called FPC under the Indian Companies Act. The second is a group of farmers organizing themselves as a cooperative under the Local State Cooperative Act. Or it can be a loose group of farmers who can form a society under Society Registration Act. All these three entities are known as the FPOs. Now, a little bit I want to say about what is that government has done for these FPOs. Actually, SFSC being the primary architect for these FPOs have been running different schemes for the last so many years. And today, the 10,000 FPO scheme, which government is planning to unfold in the coming 5 years, basically it places emphasis on grouping farmers in at least 300 minimum number should be there to form an FPO. And when I say 300, this applies to the normal states, means the mainland states, the plains. But the northeastern region and the hilly areas where the population is sparsely, it is distributed and it is sparse, the population is sparse, then the minimum number of people who can come together is 100. And therefore, any group of farmers, either 300 or 100 in number, can form FPO and get the assistance of this new scheme. And this, though it is desirable, the scheme makes it very clear that it is desirable that at least the FPO should have 500 members. And to do the hand-holding for these FPOs, as I mentioned, depending on the type of organization, three different organizations are associated. One is the SFSC, the second is that of NABARD, and the third player who has just recently entered is the National Cooperation Development Corporation, the NCDC, which is going to handhold the FPOs who are basically constituted under the Cooperative Society Act. The emphasis of these bodies is to develop what is called cluster-based business organization. And there is a concept called one district, one product. Means we can't be growing and everything and doing everything because there will be no economies of scale. To ensure economies of scale, quality control, effective market linkages, the concept of one district and one product has been enunciated in the new FPO scheme. The form of assistance which is given to FPO under the new scheme would actually include financial assistance for the salary component of the CEO. CEO is the chief executive officer. You know, once you form a company, you will have a executive head, he is the CEO, and then the various other officers, means the accountant or the administrative officer or the marketing assistant, whosoever is. So it includes the salary component. It includes the rental in which the FPO runs their operation, the utility charges, the cost of registering such an organizations. All this is going to be supported by the government under the scheme. The second aspect is each of the FPOs will be given matching equity grant of rupees 2,000 per member, and the limit for each FPO has been set at rupees 15 lakhs. So what I mean is, if one FPO is entitled to receive 15 lakhs as equity grant, then the FPO is also should raise equity of equivalent of 15 lakhs by themselves. So then in that case, once the equity is raised, that organization can borrow and they can do and do the borrowings and make investment. In addition to the equity grant, which the scheme supports, there is also a provision to give credit guarantee facility. Now, why this facility is given? Because many banks are reluctant to extend credit because some FPOs may not repay or may go bankrupt. So therefore, to give an assurance to the banking community that yes, we are beside you, there is a question of this credit guarantee is extended also to those organizations so that if something goes wrong, then that the banks are not put to difficulty. So this credit guarantee facility can go up to 22 crores per FPO, which is a very huge thing. Many of you may recollect that 2 years back, due to the continuous efforts made by the Ministry of Agriculture, the Government of India also announced or made a provision in the Income Tax Act that income from FPO is with a turnover of up to 100 crores is exempt from income tax. And this particular exemption was given flowing from the logic that agricultural income is exempt from income tax. Then why is it that income which is derived through the FPO operation is subject to income tax? Because you know companies are subject to income tax. So therefore, this was a very landmark decision of the government, and by which all the stumbling blocks in the functioning of the FPOs have been removed. Now, after delineating these aspects of the FPO, I would like to also point out that why is it that we need the FPOs? What is the necessity of having FPOs? FPOs are basically empowering the rural, our farmers. Unless our farmers are empowered, they are not, the benefits are not going to flow, nor the dream of doubling farmers' income can be realized. Therefore, we need to empower them. And FPOs is one way of empowering the farmers. The second is when FPOs are formed, then it is very likely that agricultural inputs, there will be a reduction in the cost of buying such inputs because you group together, you get concessions, and therefore the cost of production also get reduced if you are a member of the FPO because you get access to inputs at a lower cost. Secondly, there is an ease of aggregation of the commodities that you are producing. Then logistics can be well organized, and there will be economies of scale. You can access modern technology, and you can also, the members of the FPO can also go for capacity building, because one of the important aspects of the new scheme is capacity building is recognized as an essential activities, and all the employees of the FPOs and the farmers who want to actually make use of this capacity building provision, they can be trained in different parts of the country. The government has recognized two organizations at the apex level to impart training. One is the NCDC has identified LINAC, one center, which they have in Delhi. They will be training the members of the cooperative societies or the FPOs modeled on cooperative society. And NABARD, its organization called BIRD, that is the Bankers Institute for Rural Development, based in Lucknow, will be the apex organization which will be impacting training program for the farmer producer companies. And the government has also told that each of the state government can identify different organizations which can impart training to its members if they feel like. And all this will be funded by the government. As I was
Sir,
mentioning, as I was mentioning, the this the the FPOs Also, once they're grouped, they can also concentrate on arresting the post-harvest losses because they can do primary processing, they can get capital, they can ensure quality, and they can address the issue of price volatility. They'll have better bargaining power when they go to the market. They can access new technology. They can access the eNAM platform. They can also access credit from the bank, and they can also,
Patnaik sir,
yeah.
sorry to interrupt you in between, sir, but if you like, sir, you can switch on your video also.
Okay, okay,
Oh,
fine. Be-
okay, sir.
Because because you said you are not going to allow the video, that's why. Okay.
It's
As
for
I was
the
mentioning,
participants, sir.
no, as I was mentioning, yes. So the question is, there will be greater bargaining power when the FPOs really come in. Then so once you have better bargaining power, then naturally there will be better price realization. Today, the country is going through a problem. Farmers are in deep distress because they're not getting the right price for the agricultural produce. It's not that India is not producing enough. India is the biggest producer of agricultural commodities in the world. Today, we are surplus in fact, today, if the lockdown is successful, it is because of the bumper production, agricultural production of this country, for which we could sustain a lockdown almost nearing 2 months. There has been no disruption in food supplies. It's another thing government was kind enough to ensure that agricultural operations are free from interruptions due to lockdown. But we must salute the farmers that they have produced so much that we have sufficient stocks in our kitty which can support an idling population. So therefore, the production is not the problem in the country today. The problem is that of marketing, and this marketing is possible if the FPOs really come up in a big way. So it is not too late in the day. It's rather late in the day that FPOs have been recognized, but it's not too late either. Because in this moment of crisis, what stands apart is the power of the farmers to group themselves. They only can lead the country. When all sectors of the economy has come to a grinding halt, it is only the agriculture which has really shown the way. And I am certain the coming months and the coming months, it will be agriculture which will be only having a vibrant growth, though many more sectors will be still struggling. So, having said that, I just want to highlight that some of you must have seen in the press that there has been a large scale migration of laborers from the urban areas and the agriculturally advanced states to that of the hinterland or to the less the backward so-called backward states. Now this has been highlighted as a major problem by many of us, but I see mostly that this is not so much of a problem, because once this particular phenomenon has started, it's very likely that many of the laborers who have come back to their own native place, many of them may stay back, and only a few may go back to their original place of working when things improve. And when they stay back in the villages, then it is only those villages and the rural areas which should be having all the ingredient to spur growth. If it and it is a huge opportunities for us to really demonstrate our strength in the rural countryside. And when I say we must demonstrate our strength, many of you know that we have been complaining all these years that there are no labor to do agriculture. So there is no problem of that. And when some laborers migrate from Punjab or Haryana back to the Bihar or Odisha or Jharkhand, then maybe Punjab will be forced to grow less labor intensive crop, less water guzzling crops. Because where if there is no labor, they will think of doing automation, and this paddy transplanting and operations, they are going to come down. Now, it will provide a huge opportunities for states like Bihar, Jharkhand, Odisha, Eastern Uttar Pradesh, Assam, Northeastern region to really come up in a very big way to go for labor intensive crops, water guzzling crops, because water is available in plenty. So there will be a diversification, and crop planning, which we have been speaking, is going to take place in a very significant way. Similarly, people equipped with skills who have been spent their time in urban areas are going to increasingly make use of these skills in the rural areas if right opportunity is provided. You know, very recently, the government announced a 1 lakh crore agri infrastructure fund. And I am certain this is a right decision which will spur agricultural growth in a very big way. And certain and Manrega spending has also been increased by 40,000 crores. I would appeal that I would think all these developments are good because the new economic activity is going to start in the rural areas. The rural ecosystem is going to provide all the opportunities to the modern world, and I mean to our farming community. Thanks to COVID, people are now very conscious of diet and immunity boosters. People are trying to say you grow this crop and eat more spices and drink this and that, which basically are agricultural produce. So agricultural producers have huge opportunities because right now the focus is right. Every person is very conscious of his food, of his habits, of its dietary habits. Junk food is going to be dispensed with, homegrown food is going to come up. So FPOs can grab this opportunity in a very big way. And with the midday meal scheme, with the ICDS scheme, all these FPOs can organize themselves to supply food even to the schools, to the Anganwadis, and these hospitals. All these provide great opportunities. Unfortunately, there is no link. The farmer is only producing and doing nothing. Instead of just producing, I think these new opportunities that is going to come the way, we should be able to tap through the FPOs. I know for sure we are going to hear at length the success of different FPOs, and Samanati is really present here. I and will be very happy to hear that. But I can tell with pride that today FPOs have come of age. I visited a FPO in near Nasik called Sayadri, Sayadri FPO. It is a group of 10,000 farmers. So, farmers of different villages have all come together. They have adopted such technologies which will shame even advanced countries like Israel and United States, because that's the sort of technology they have invested, and all this is done by the farmers. So in our own country, we have huge success. We also have very small organizations who are equally successful. Many people are now taking to it. I'm a strong believer that FPOs are going to change the agricultural landscape of this country. And I'm certain that the COVID 19, the outbreak of COVID-19 is going to accelerate the pace of growth of FPOs in this country in a very big way. I don't want to take much time. I can be sure that the supply chain, agri-logistics is going to take a new dimension because there are three reforms which government has announced. One is first and foremost is to have one national market. That means no more the farmer is going to take his produce only to designated agricultural producers marketing committee. You are no more you are free from the shackles of APMC Act. So that is one. So you are free to sell anywhere. So there will be better price discovery. That is the first thing which government has done. The second is the Essential Commodities Act is going to be amended to ensure that agricultural commodities do not come under its purview. That means if I produce more, I can sell and to whosoever I want to. I can export, I can sell to whosoever I feel like. No inspector is going to come and say, why did you store so much? So that is going to give a fillip to again production and better price discovery. The third is the Contract Farming Act. To put it crudely, they have not said it contract farming, but it is. Will also ensure that FPOs can be the link to even a part of the link of this supply chain in a better way. And the contract farming will ensure that the vagaries of nature is going to be minimized, because by entering into a contract, the price is determined before you start sowing the agricultural crop. So therefore, you will realize a better price if the Contract Farming Act really comes into existence. So these are reforms of regulatory nature which was very much needed, and therefore this is also going to give a fillip to the growth of FPOs in this country. I hope I have just touched upon the various dimensions of the FPO at the national level. I'm very keen to hear the other experts in the field who will be discussing the different dimensions of the role of FPO in rebuilding our agricultural supply chain. And once again, I'm grateful to the organizers of this function for giving me a chance to address you this morning, and wishing all of you a good times ahead of us in the coming months. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Now, we invite Dr. Shrikant Sharma, Associate Faculty Member, School of Entrepreneurship and Extension. Dr. Sharma's areas of interest are agripreneurship, farmer-based organizations, and agriculture innovations. Sir, you may please proceed with the sessions now.
My PPT is visible?
Yes, sir.
Good morning, Dr. S.K. Patnaik, sir, DG ASCII, Madam Glory Swarupa, Madam, DG LIMSME, my co-panelists and participants from all over the country and also from abroad. I welcome you all to my presentation. So, the agenda for my presentation is going to be the need of the hour, why FPOs, FPO promotion and development process I'll be speaking about, and also saying how COVID-19 has affected the agriculture sector. And I will be also discussing about the various sectors within the agriculture and its impact. I will also discussing the various schemes of Ministry of Food Processing and SFAC and others, and ENAM initiatives and future scopes for FPOs. So to start with, we have seen why there is a requirement for FPOs in the country. We know that 86% of the farmers are small and marginal. That is, they have less than 2 hectares of the land. And the cropping area comes to around 47%. Now, this land size that is less than 2 hectares is not at all viable for agriculture. Hardly, it's very difficult to support even 4 to 5 members of a family in this small land size. Now, hence there is a requirement for aggregation. And with FPOs coming into the picture, the marketing and the price, realizing the better price and getting the good market becomes easier. Further, there is also in India, there is a requirement for small storage and processing structures as compared to big factories and storage, unlike abroad, where we have big scientific storage space and we have big factories. But in India, what is going to be more viable is small storage structures located in a scattered manner with small processing facilities.
Sharma, sir?
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you in between, sir, but your PPT is not showing any longer, sir. Yes, sir, it's visible now.
Visible. So, reduction of the other point, which is more important, is there is a lot of inequality of income. When we see the inequality in the land size, we also see the inequality in the income, resulting into a lot of inequality in the villages, and also which is one of the factor for poverty and food security. With a government vision of doubling farmer income by 2022, FPO can play really a big role in this. And also it also leads into decentralized last mile distribution of food products. At present, in India, we have around 5,600 FPOs registered. As rightly said by Patnaik sir, there are around 3,500 FPOs registered as producer companies. Remaining are registered as cooperatives and societies. The target of the government is to have 10,000 FPOs by the year 2024. Now, the next thing that I will be discussing is how do we promote and develop an FPO? So for developing and promoting an FPO, we have to first of all identify cluster for certain product. As sir was also pointing out, there is a scheme that one district, one product. And the government of Uttar Pradesh has very well implemented this scheme, and they have identified district-wise special product for each district. This concept is similar to that of the Thailand. They have also developed and they have resulted into a successful model. Now, once we identify within a geographical area a particular crop which is doing very good, we can identify it as a cluster. Once the cluster is identified, then a diagnostic study can be taken in that cluster. Diagnostic study means that we have to identify what is the problem, real problem in reaching the last mile for that product. So once the diagnostic study has been done, then the feasibility analysis for the plan can be done. Then we do a baseline study that what is the current status of the situation in that particular area. Once we have done the baseline assessment, so we can, in the future, we can determine that how in the future we can have what is our progress after implementing the FPO, which can be compared with the baseline study. Then the business planning can be done. Based on the business planning, we can mobilize the farmers and we can organize and formalize the groups, and then we can federate them and register as farmer producer companies. We have to also do the resource mobilization in terms of money, infrastructure, and money. Then system development is very essential, and which I think NABARD and NCDC are providing excellent training on this regard. Then business operations, developing a system, an institution development of the farmer producer company is also very essential. And if any cooperative, assessment and audit plays a very, very important role to develop transparency in the system. Now I'll be discussing about how COVID-19 has affected the sector. In terms of, if you see the agriculture industries, the challenge for the agriculture industry was that it has to keep both the employees as well as the consumers safe of COVID-19, and at the same time function and provide food, agriculture inputs, machineries, services, and feed to the ultimate users. Now, this was really a difficult challenge, and I am very much glad to share that most of the agriculture industries have done a tremendous great job in this regard, because of which we have really faced not very difficult problems during the lockdown with respect to food. Restaurant stalls and food chain business almost got stuck up, and all this requirement from the farmer which these chains and restaurant had shifted to stores and e-commerce. There was also shortage of working capital for this agri industries, and there was problem with respect to finance, and there was also some problem with respect to income of the farmers, which resulted into there was problem with respect to farmer, which resulted into survival issues of this farmer. And the timely support from the government in terms of some deposit in their Jan Dhan Yojana account was really a very savior in this regard. Then packaging.
PPT has stopped sharing again.
Okay, I'll just. Yeah, I think it's perfect now.
Yes, sir.
So the timely support from the government was really a great help in this regard. There was also erratic prices of the agriculture commodities. Like the farmers, as we know, that farmers sell in wholesale, but they buy in retail. That means they were actually buying at a higher cost and selling at a lower price. And they could not buy or sell, leading to a lot of wastage. We have seen the news regarding rotting of vegetables in the field and pouring out milk on the roads, and there was a lot of issues in this regard. Packaging, yes, packaging was also a big problem because some of the packaging industries closed down. With respect to suppose jute industry, some packaging paper industries, all those closed down, and there was a shortage for many of the agri input companies like seeds for having some packaging things with them. Storage was also a problem, and logistics sector faced problem with respect to labor prices. Now, if we just divide agriculture into various sectors, I have identified as agri inputs, fruits and vegetable, dairy, poultry, meat and fish. So what was the impact on this regard? To say that in agri inputs, there was we right now we have heavy dependency with respect to agri inputs. We are supplying our agri inputs through imports. Lot of active ingredients and molecules are getting imported from abroad, and we are just formalizing it and we are selling, packaging and selling it. Now, due to stoppage of the import, there was a lot of chances that some of the animal medicines and plant pesticides were expected to be in shortfall. And there was also China is the biggest supplier of phosphate fertilizer. But thank God there was not much of a problem with respect to fertilizers, and fertilizer availability was well ensured in the last mile of the country. Fruits and vegetable, yes, there was also erratic demand of fruits and vegetables. People started avoiding fruits and vegetables, especially the fruits, the leafy, the tomato vegetables. The dairy sector saw a 30% decline in the sales, and there was the skimmed milk powder prices dropped from rupees 340 to rupees 230 per kg in the international market. Right, and the paneer consumption actually went up. The COVID resulted into lower sales of ice cream, milkshakes, lassi, uh, and milk cooperatives faced problem with respect to uh, 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 procurement of so much of milk which came to them, because the milk was not getting sold in the open market, and milk cooperatives had to face this problem. And in this regard, the suggestion is that the skim milk powder conversion was only the way out in this crisis. Further, in the poultry sector, if you see the All India Poultry Breeder Association estimated that because of the rumor that chicken causes corona, cost around 30,000 crores loss to the industry. The meat and fish sector also slow a slump in the demand. Now, I'll be highlighting some of the government schemes and the initiatives which are relevant for farmer producer organizations. So, the Ministry of Food Processing of India has various schemes which I think the farmer producer organization can take advantage of. One of the scheme is integrated cold chain and value addition infrastructure under Pradhan Mantri Kishan Sampada Yojana. Under this scheme, the farmer producer organization can get grant in aid of around 35% for storage and transport infrastructure and 50% for value addition and processing infrastructure. The maximum limit for getting the benefit is of 10 crores. Then there was also a scheme of creation of infrastructure for agro processing clusters. In this also there is a minimum grant of 35% and maximum of 10 crores. Then creation and expansion of food processing and preservation capacities also had a benefit of around 35% grant in it, maximum up to 5 crores. Creation of backward and forward linkages in which we do the backward integration and forward integration with the farmers and with the consumers, the FPOs. The minimum grant in aid is around 35%, maximum up to 5 crores. Then integrated development of tomato, onion, and potato. These are the three vegetables which account for a lot of share in the whole fruits, the vegetable sales. There was a scheme in which 70% grant in maximum up to 50 crores in 4 installment can be given. And all this Ministry of Food Processing of India schemes can be applied by online mode. Once we go to their website, we can just there is an online application mode and creation of infrastructure and scheme is having the deadline on 31st of May. This very recently. Then I will also talk about the SFAC scheme. As we know that SFAC is working extensively, very nicely in this sector. And as Sir already highlighted, that loan up to rupees 2 crore on as a credit guarantee by the government is given to the FPOs to promote to encourage the banks to finance to the FPOs. Then there is also provision of training of CEOs and board of directors on business plan formulation and execution, compliance, administrative under Companies Act, and basic accounting features. If we see this, if we go to the NABARD website also, they have a very good literature and manual already available for anyone to assess and understand about the operation of farmer producer organizations. Support to FPOs for management cost, as Sir also highlighted this, that salary of CEO, office expenses, etc. for 3 years after the registration is provided by the SFAC. Equity grant, as rightly pointed out, there is a matching grant of up to 50 lakhs, which is also given by SFAC. Then beside this, there are other schemes which are noteworthy, which FPOs can take advantage of, is a NABARD Training and Capacity Building Scheme, and then loan from NAB Kisan Finance Limited for group starting as well as growth of the FPOs is available, and this also can be applied in a very easy, friendly manner through online process. Then there is a Deen Dayal Antyodaya Yojana under the NRLM, National Rural Livelihood Mission scheme, under which the producer groups are being promoted and graduated into sustainable, member-owned and member-governed producer enterprises. Now, I'll be also discussing about, I think, I'll just touch up the ENAM initiative. I think my other speakers will also be deliberating it on detail, but just to highlight that ENAM portal has integrated with the negotiable warehouse receipt. Now it becomes very easy. You store in one of the warehouse, take that receipt, and you can get finance from the bank. The FPO trading module, which is available now in the ENAM portal, one of the FPOs can just take the picture and inform about the quality of the produce in the portal and can get the best prices and can sell the produce from his own premises and need not also go to the mandi. So this is the recent amendment in the FPO Act, which is really going to bring a lot of help to the FPOs and the farming community as a whole. Launch of logistic module. This is also a very important module in which they are linking the transporters and traders. Now, what do we have the vision for this FPOs in the days to come? Yes, there are a lot of things which can be done, which can be done. So one of the thing is that ensuring continuous like corporate tie-ups, which if private people are allowed to participate with the pharma producer companies, they can ensure the continuous supply of raw material along with the traceability of the raw material. And I think this is right now very important for the consumers also. And because of this, the brand image of the corporates also go up. Then agri-input distribution, UPL and Bayer, they are right now doing this agri-input distribution through farmer producer organizations, custom hiring centers, processing and marketing intelligence can be strengthened. Essential Commodities Act, as it has been removed now, it is also going to give a boost to the corporates to enter into direct contact with farmer producer organizations. Then some of the digital solutions which is provided by organizations like Kalgodi, Pressex, KRP, and many other startups are doing extensive job with respect to providing digital solutions and platforms for FPOs to manage them in a very professional and proficient manner. Value addition, right now, previously the FPOs were moved into B2B, business to business transactions. Now they can get into B2C, in which they can directly get into e-commerce and with their own outlets and to the consumers. Recently, I have visited one of the FPOs in Kerala at Tirur. They have developed excellent products with respect to coconut virgin oil and Nira, and which is having huge demand with respect to the market demand, and they are also exporting. But rightly during this COVID time, there was an impact on the exports. Then contract farming and commodity trade is also going to bring a lot of scope for these FPOs to grow and discover better prices for themselves and their farmers. Thank you all for a very patient hearing, and I thank the organizers and my co-panelists for joining this program and for sharing their valuable comments. I look forward for the other panelists to share their views. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now we invite Dr. Rashmi Singh, Principal Scientist, Division of Agriculture Extension, Indian Agriculture Research Institute, New Delhi. Dr. Singh has over 28 years of experience as ARS scientist since 1991 and faculty member and research guide of PG School IARI. She delineated factors of success of agripreneurship and developed a scale for assessing orientation of successful women entrepreneurs towards social values, developed a process model of agri-entrepreneurship development and a convergence model of extension for agripreneurship development. As entrepreneurial motivation trainer, developed a unique training methodology encompassing 4 modules, resulting in 30% success rate. Establishment of 2 brands, Nilraj and Sunhara Fresh in Hapur district. Ma'am, you may please proceed with your session now.
Hello, good morning all. I'm really privileged to be part of this webinar today. I would like to share my experience.
Ma'am, your voice is a little low.
Hello, is it okay now?
Yes, ma'am.
Better?
Yes, ma'am.
Just a minute. Soumya, is my PPT visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Huh?
Yes, ma'am. It's actually not visible anymore, ma'am. It started, but maybe you have closed it. Okay, it's starting again.
Sorry for the logistic problems. Good morning to all again. I would like to share some of my thoughts on the topic today. And COVID is actually has made us think and rethink again. Let me start my presentation with this. How to go this? Soumya, how to go to the next slide?
Ma'am, on the left bottom side, on your presentation itself, there will be the back and front arrow, the previous and next arrows.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So, like we go through the newspaper news every day, and like we have been like coming up with this kind of highlights that these are the we have not we have not acknowledged the unsung corona warriors for the farmers. Like farmers have been like there, and now we have only highlighted the role which our doctors have, or the frontline workers, police, and other people have taken up, but we have forgotten how farmers have kept the agricultural produce going on and the production in full swing. Actually, COVID happened at the time when the harvesting was in full progress. So harvesting was not suffered at that time, and it was taken up. So production was full fledged. Then from like the other news says that from UP to Maharashtra, it is not the problem of the production, not the problem in the field, but it is in the marketing problem. And marketing is our nemesis, if we can term it. So marketing, and then there are price like concerns about the rising prices or the price volatility post COVID. So all these clippings we come across, but the positive news is that this, despite all the challenges, agriculture sector has been growing at a rate of 11.3%, and agricultural growth has surpassed the non-agriculture sector growth in the past quarter, like April to June of this fiscal year, and estimated production of all the major crops. As you see in the clipping here, newspaper clipping showing our minister with the data, that it projections are like we are going to be fully like good, sitting on a good quantum of food grains. So this is a highlight of the like positive side. And then uh, the thing dismally where we acted dismally was that marketing aspects, because the selling labor availability was not a problem, harvesting was not a problem, but the problem was selling it at APMCs, which was like mostly closed down in the initial lockdown period. Later on, like in the lockdown 3, it was opened up. There were no buyers. Very few farmers were allowed in APMC because of the pass system and all. So there was no efficient procurement and marketing system in place, which needs to be revamped in place of, in view of the such kind of emergencies and such kind of exigencies. Then I will take you back to my like research which we have done in the last 10 years on achiever agripreneurs, agricultural entrepreneurs. And I term our farmers also agricultural entrepreneurs if they are having profitability and business orientation, and are able to take some kind of primary processing or primary grading and packaging and retailing. So they are the agricultural entrepreneurs whom we have termed up. So achiever agripreneurs, when we asked what was like making them so successful, and we found that it was their marketing linkages, which was around 44% of the people who were saying that marketing linkages, whether they were formal one, whether they were informal one, they were the ones which were proving to be critical in their success, like critical in getting them profitability. Apart from like their best practice was like they were growing market oriented crops, and they were trying to like use the other factors were also there, waste, from the wastage control to quality concern to diversification. Diversification emerged as the major best practice which they were engaged in. But we should not negate 44% for highlighting that it is marketing linkages, which it is not the production, but it is the linkages and selling ability which is making them successful. So I'm just highlighting this because I want to highlight that how crucial is marketing and like post production processes for the success of farm sector or the agriculture sector. And then in one of our action research, we tried to have different institutions and converged their synergistic strengths for developing agripreneurs. And this is the model which we developed, that it is possible by converging the respective strengths of other institutions, whether it is public institutions or private institutions or public private collaboration we have been talking about. but it is convergence is beyond collaboration. It is not only a partnership. It is convergence for the like one agenda, one and from the starting, from planning to action, executing, everything is done in a tandem, like complementary manner. For example, we took up the IRA here, Root City Institution, NABARD was also a partner here. Then Agribusiness Systems International, it was a marketing agency. Then we have grassroots, agencies like Lakshmi Jan Kalyan Seva Sansthan. It is a very active NGO in Western UP area. Then Bharti Walmart was also like a marketing agency whom we approached for collaborating in this area. And all we also utilize the established entrepreneurs in other regions for teaching, training, and motivating and inspiring purposes. Uh, and we were able to, train several agripreneurs in that. And I would also like to highlight one of the success case in near Delhi in Bulandshahr of Colonel Deswal, who's into production and market. Like he has set up a, English carrot business where he is involved marketing innovation, and he is the one who's able to set price of his own product, which is rarely seen in agricultural commodities. So because he is sole producer and he is he is importing the technology, and then he is giving training to farmers, nearby farmers, and he has consolidated or aggregated 400 farmers into a unit, and then marketing it as per demand in the market. Like production is done on the seasonal basis, but then he has constructed certain cold structures which by which he is able to control the temperature and other things, and he can store it, and at appropriate prices he is able to sell it through refrigerated transportation is done in the refrigerated trucks all over India. We tried to analyze his case, and we tried to like see what are the forward linkages, so we and the backward linkages as well. So we went to the production factors, marketing factors. These were the two major factors which we found that they were like proving to be critical for his success. He was importing some Holland variety, and he was giving it to other farmers also. Then he has standardized, self standardized certain cultivation practices through experimentation, and he was also into cost cutting, like cost of cultivation cutting, so that profits are enhanced. And then yield of coming out to be 20 tons per acre, which is a huge record yield. And then cost of production, if we see, and the returns he was getting 2.5 lakhs per acre, so which is a very good return in this area. And for marketing, he was like he invested much of his savings from the army service into like constructing cold storage chain, and then cleaning and grading he was taking up, and then packaging, loading, unloading, and then he was providing full support in terms of commission to the from the farmers to the transporters, and so, and without impinging on his own profit. So this price fixation was done on the quality, and people are looking for quality. The consumers or the buyers are really going for quality, and he says that I don't have to go and send and market myself. People come to me and buy this thing, buy my commodity. So, like by sitting in Bulandshahr, he's able to sell it all over India in his refrigerated trucks and as per his price, his quoted price. So that is like unseen in the agriculture sector. So we, as Dr. Patnaik has also said, that there are many success cases. So many success cases are there, and he has also involved 400 farmers nearby. So if we look up what he is being critical for his success, these are the highlights which we found out from the production to the marketing and the quality management. So in these we have done research previously, and now since COVID, we have to think about what now, what is imperative now. We have to move beyond Mondays. We have to see for certain other sources, like besides APMC or one place, or so we have to construct, like in such exigencies or some calamities, we must have some kind of more purchase or collection centers, the rice or dal mills or schools, colleges, where FCI, where dispatch of the cereal crops especially can be done to FCI warehouses. Then in term for the vegetables and fruits, other perishable commodities, direct selling to consumers in societies by farm FPOs have been taken up. And these have been taken up because of their own informal networks or the channels. These channels were, established. So, is my voice okay? I'm getting a message that voice is not clear. Is my voice clear now?
Yes, ma'am. Correct.
Okay. So, for some of the FPOs with which I have been associated in NCR region, like I am aware, two of the FPOs which were recently launched in village Tigipur in Delhi and Fatehpur village in Faridabad, they sold directly their produce to residential societies in Delhi. And in Mumbai also, we have come across certain, societies where residential welfare associations partnered with farmer producer companies of Pune, Nasik, and were able to, use their linkages for developing a, supply chain during the COVID period. These are the glimpses, like this is how the Tigipur farm FPO has started selling their vegetables and fruits in the nearby Delhi localities. Though this is a very newly launched FPO, it was only launched in 2019. And this is a Fatehpur Biloch FPO initial meeting which we were having for mobilizing FPO. Now they are also full-fledged and going about, but then all these has been done and on the because they had their own informal networks, and they established that it was at the individual level. It was uh, in COVID era, we have seen that all people at every level, they have been doing their best, to manage the things. So not only government, but at the like local level also, people were able to set up this kind of network. If we see what are the services, like uh, conclude, if we see what are the areas or the services FPO can be like utilized, they can provide some organizational services, they can give up production services, input supply services, marketing, financial services, procurement and packaging services. These are the areas. Value addition is like having immense scope for FPOs, which has already been highlighted by the previous two speakers. And the welfare services, the management of effective, management of resources, optimizing it, and then linking services. All these things can be taken up by FPOs at a large scale. But the main thing for extensionist, being an extensionist, I would like go for the role of extension here. That what extension system should create is not only we have been talking about good agricultural practices pre-COVID era, but post-COVID is also about good handling practices and good hygienic practices, not only in the production but post-production processes also, so that the products are healthier and hygienic, and there is not so much of fear associated with consuming pesticide laden fruits or vegetables or those things. Before COVID, entrepreneurs or FPOs were mainly focused on gap and value addition, but now these good hygienic practices and good handling practices become of more importance now. And if we see what kind of specific initiatives they can play in the agriculture sector, it is the need is to strengthen the FPOs, and government is also taking up at a war footing, as Dr. Patnaik has already said. But then there is a like main need to safeguard and maintain the supply chain of producers from producers to retailers. and curfew passes like curfew passes, and then the financial support to FPOs from NABARD should also cover up the losses due to pandemic, which is not there right now in the provisions there. Uh, then new roles need to be initiated by FPOs, like there should be some paradigm shift in traditional market to auction with digital platform. E-trade should take more, prominence here, and more frequent and updated market price information is needed to send on, like for the FPOs to, so that they are able to improve the transparency. Then their help desk, which has already been taken up, Krishi Rath and all those toll-free numbers have been set up. But so they should also provide the necessary information and technology during the period, COVID period. And clientele should also be advised to contact relevant officers through telephone and digital media. And other extension and advisory services should also be linked through various social media, where for health hygienic protocol and details about the collaborative efforts, how can that be done, should be made available online. And I conclude with the focus of the government, that all this has been like taken into consideration, and like large scale agricultural marketing reforms are on way, and there has been like huge amount given specifically to this area. So marketing is the crux which needs to be focused, apart from good hygienic practices and good handling practices post production also. Thank you so much. I end my presentation here. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, I would like to invite Ms. Purvi Sarkar, Director Strategies there. Ms. Sarkar is a strategist and a social entrepreneur and holds an expertise in value chain analysis, impact assessment, business development, entrepreneurship, customer behavior, risk assessment, research, and sustainability. She has also worked with farmers and FPOs across the country in Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Kerala, and Uttarakhand, and understands the crop diversity and challenges in supply chain farming, seeds, emerging market, and demand and risk assessment and handling. Her current focus is on rural economic development in remote terrain of the Himalayan state Uttarakhand. Ma'am, you may please proceed with your session now.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, I'll just share my screen. Is it visible? Hello?
I request Mr. Jay Mishra to please keep the microphone on mute. You may proceed now, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I would like to thank each of the panelists and all the participants out here in this webinar, where we are here to discuss something very pertinent to the current scenario. Being an agriculture economy driven country, it's very important that the farmers, especially who are the food growers, to get an access to all the problem solving ways in this current COVID scenario. And here I am, Purvi, to just give my viewpoints and also on the know-how on how we can rebuild the agricultural supply chain during this COVID-19 crisis. As the rest of the speakers spoke on, what the COVID, what FPO is, and how are the different schemes being there, what is being a cluster management and mobilization and other things. I would like to just skim through the slides so that we don't duplicate the same thing. And as you can see, the financial measures and legal amendments, that have happened from the government right now. There has been a lot of emphasis, like a 10,000 crore scheme formulation for micro-food enterprises. Then, beekeeping development centers. We do understand that, beekeeping is not just for honey, but it's also for pollination, and which yields to a good cropping and also a good cropping pattern and farming practices. So 500 crore schemes. I would request all the FPOs, whoever is there in this, participant network, to institutionalize this opportunity. And also Operation Greens, where 500 crores would be not just spent on the tomatoes, onions, and potatoes, the top model, but also for all the vegetables which will be delivered from market to consumer. So Operation Greens is something which is a very interesting financial measure that has come into place. There has been concessional credit, like through Kisan credit cards, which are on which the small and marginal farmers will be given funds from the NABARD, state and district cooperative banks. So this is basically an ecosystem for the sustainable FPOs. This is the source of this is from the NABARD paper. As you must be seeing that these are the elements, and marketing, government policies, infrastructure, retailing, services, credit guarantee, and HRD. So right now, what is the problem? What is the problem that we are trying to address out here in this session is, what is the bottleneck that has happened in COVID? Most importantly, marketing has got hit very badly. Second thing is, there are a lot of farmer groups, FPOs, which were waiting for seeds for the next crop, for the sowing. So what happens in case of that? They were not able to access, the markets for getting the seeds. So in this case, there could be a suggestive mechanism, like there can be seed banks which can be built by FPOs in the current scenario, wherein a seed bank can fetch as a corpus of seeds for the farmers for the next cropping season in case of any calamities. What is the stress test? What was the stress test that is being happening? So, as you see, we have warehousing and crop cycles. So the liquidity has hit the farming and trading community. There has been a bumper Rabi crop this year, and the storage, there are less storage warehouses in our country. So in the current scenario, when the warehouses will be occupied with the surplus Rabi crops. So hello. Yeah. So once the storage of commodities in warehouses will take longer time than usual, there could be a scarcity of agricultural warehousing space when the next Kharif crop hits the market by November or December. So this is one stress that may hit the market, and we need to address that, and that can be addressed only by an FPO. Lower realizations. Farmers who grow perishables, especially the fruits and vegetables, are already facing the heat of the situation, with the prices plummeting, reduction in bulk demand because of the closure of hotels and restaurants not yet functioning properly, and also on the uncertainty over exports because of the current crisis. Government support and intervention in stabilizing the pricing has, especially in this scenario, the MSP has definitely got a hit. But what an FPO can do is, they can basically help the farmers at least get some funds out of the sales rather than getting into wastage, which we are seeing in a lot of places. Now we talk about the agri marketing reforms. Like Shrikant sir said that there is from ENAM, there can be a direct selling which can happen. So as you know, in the ENAM, there has been a module which has been amended, which is for the FPOs to access, where they can upload the picture of the crop and do the direct sell. So this will be very beneficial for the FPOs because it gets into a collective sale mode, and it definitely helps in reaping good value for the FPO to sustain, and also the farmer members get benefited. So there has been changes in the APMC Act as well. Develop and hello.
Audible, ma'am.
Okay. Develop and upgrade in agricultural marketing infrastructure in the grams, that is the markets. The farmers can sell their commodities without traveling long distance in the lockdown scenario. So when there is a transport issue, at least if they can sell it from ENAM or GRAMs, it definitely helps the FPOs. Alternative marketing channels, as Dr. Patnaik said about Sahyadri Farms of Nasik. Very interestingly, it's one of the leading FPOs with 1,200 farmers, and they sold fruits and vegetables worth 4 crores during the lockdown period by establishing a direct link with 57,000 customers. And this is very, commendable, because in this scenario, a direct sell and through an alternative marketing channel by directly reaching out to the customers has definitely helped through an FPO model. Assisted sale. Organizations like Kheti, which is based at Telangana, is using technology as a platform to map the farmers' produce or requirements with the solution providers and buyers. For example, there are farmers in Siddipet district in Telangana who need access, who need to sell their watermelons. So in that case, Kheti is helping that information to be mapped through technology and getting them to the solution providers, that is to the right buyers. Also, Kheti is assisting in getting good seeds and other agri inputs. Food processing. So government is setting up efficient and big size warehouses with cooling facilities at the block level through the PPP model. And also there are massive efforts that are that can be handled by FPO in the current scenario, and they are working together with NGOs, with the local forward NGOs in the current scenario in Uttarakhand, where they are doing direct selling in the agri sector. I would not go through this slide because I think the last 3 speakers did speak a lot on these aspects. I would just like to highlight on the Kisan Rath farmer-friendly mobile application, which is to facilitate farmers and traders in searching the vehicles for primary and secondary transportation. And primary transportation includes movements of goods from farms to mandis, FPO centers, village hearts, grams, railway stations, and warehouses. And the secondary transportation will include the movement of goods from mandis to the interstate mandis, processing units, railway stations for sending into other stations, interstate and intrastate warehouses, and wholesalers. So this application is designed for both ENAM and non-ENAM mandis. Now, there was something very interesting, that is the module of Uberization of logistics aggregators has been recently launched on the ENAM platform. And this is going to help the traders to find out transportation in their own vicinity, because that is something which is a bottleneck at the moment. So using this kind of benefits from ENAM portal does help, and it can be achieved by FPO because it's a collective farming model. There could be certain sustainable FPO suggestions, which can actually help the FPO in the current scenario, which could be economies of scale, as Dr. Patnaik very well detailed on, and health food is the future. Focus on local group produce, that is the opportunity of growth. Focus can be on organic farming, millets, spices, indigenous rice, herbs, beekeeping, and food processing. Marketing channels can be used. Use of technology is very important. For that, different trainings can be done. Also, people's participatory mode is very important. To cite a very small example, Kheti as an organization in Telangana is actually, getting local people, like people from urban cities also, who could help them, do the task of interacting with the farmer, because the farmer may not be that tech savvy. So helping the farmer. So you can actually help the farmer in your vicinity. So you can actually help a FPO also in achieving their, objective of, getting into the right marketing channel. and also selling their produce with the effective price. Corporate subscriptions could be another model. Going forward, food is the need. A good food, a healthy food is the need. So corporate subscription models can be, can be an adaptive model for the FPO to grow. Uttarakhand FPOs like Umang and many others are doing direct sell to the customers at the moment through different social media and other platforms. Credit facility to farmer members is important because it's they could build a model which is like a fund, a revolving fund, very similar to what SHGs have, and it can roll it in the register. And logistics is very important, so they could probably see that what could be the local way out to get the produce to the nearest warehouse. Contract farming through collective farming is very important. It is definitely going to be the next future, and input cost will also reduce. Capacity building, local leadership, local entrepreneurship, better price realization for the produce, storage and packaging. It will save on losses and rodent issues, which is very important to address. So it's high time that we focus on that so that we could save our crops for the next season. Something very interesting, which is the Raitu Bandhu scheme, which is there in Telangana. And this is a newspaper cutting shared by my friend from Times of India. So this is basically, how farmers are growing crops as per government advice, and they are getting benefits of the government scheme. So basically, if you take part in the government scheme, you get advice from the government. And this is not just that the government is assisting, in using a lot of pesticides or something. Interestingly, there is a cotton farmer, who has grown cotton, organic cotton, in a good quantity and without usage of pesticides, and has a bumper crop. Similarly, a farmer had 38 quintals of paddy from his 1 acre of land. So these are very interesting best practices which we should, follow. And I would suggest that FPOs in other states could get in touch with, all other FPOs in the country, existing country, and do a best practice exchange. That brainstorming definitely helps in going ahead, and that could be a way to sustainability. Kalsi is a place in Uttarakhand where, there is a recent project that has been started for the floriculture farmers. 44 clusters have been are being guided right now, and what is happening right now is they have floriculture projects, and as you know, flower industry has got hit very badly. So in the current scenario, they are being assisted by Uttarakhand government, UGVS organization, the Village Story, Help Us Green, IFAD, and other forward NGOs like Happy Hands. They are guiding in the activity of making flower dyes from the flower produce, and also waste, from the flower waste, making products like, agarbattis and other things, usage in soaps. Drying of flowers has been, started, and also a unit is being set up, and it is in progress. So this could be something, which shows that how in the current scenario, the farmer group and the government is working together to solve the COVID crisis. And you can very well reach out to all of us in case of any questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Now we invite Ms. Fanipriya Nandula, Associate Vice President in Research, Analysis and Market Penetration Team at Samunati Financial Intermediation and Services Private Limited. Ms. Nandula possesses over 17 years of experience in livelihoods as well as microfinance sectors. For nearly 10 years, she has worked on a freelance basis in research as well as capacity building in livelihoods and agriculture value chains. She has been associated with several organizations such as NIRD, Institute of Livelihood Research and Training, Tanager, Center for Microfinance, Plan India, SS Development Services, Chaitanya, Mahila Abhivruddhi Society, Andhra Pradesh Population Services International, and so on. Ma'am, you may please proceed with your session now.
Thank you, Soumya. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Yeah, so we are nearing lunchtime. I'll not take much time of yours. So 15 minutes is the allotted time for the presentation. Okay, so today the topic that I'm going to deal with is COVID-19, an opportunity knocking the door of farmers and FPOs. Are they geared up? Actually, the previous speakers, they have enlisted the macro aspects of FPOs and agriculture, what the government is doing, what are the various schemes, what is ENAM doing, how is it connecting FPOs to the communities. So this is what we have seen there. Now, actually, we will actually look at what is actually happening on the ground in terms of the opportunity, whether this is an opportunity, whether farmers are able to take up, whether FPOs are able to take up this opportunity. And will we be able to actually build those new supply chains is something that we are going to look at. Okay, so one question that I have is, what were the top three things that went on your mind after the Prime Minister announced complete lockdown of the country on 22nd March 2020? So you could just think of the top three things that went on your mind when you actually heard that now there will be a lockdown. So, in most of you would have thought of what about food, what about medicines, what about my life? You know, these could be those top priorities, and farmers and FPOs are such organizations which are actually ensuring that these things, especially the food, comes to us. That is, life and food were the topmost in the list of our priorities. And owing to disruptions, maybe in logistics, then ensuring grocery, fruits, and vegetables reach consumers was getting difficult. But the government has done a great job in ensuring that we get all these daily requirements. Without that, there was a seamless supply. There was no problem at all. But mandis were closed, and so-called traditional traders who were there, they were not able to procure from the market. So this could be the demand side of the story. That is wherein on a daily basis, we are actually carrying our bags, going to the market, the nearby market, procuring vegetables. On Sundays, there are long queues in front of the mutton shops in order to actually buy the non-vegetarian food. So this is the kind of demand. And as the previous speakers also pointed out, the demand for healthy food is growing. Maybe that is the reason the demand for sugar has come down, but the demand for maybe organic turmeric, it has shot up. So this is what was happening on the demand side. When we look at the supply side, as Patnaik sir pointed out, after the Rabi harvest, we were sitting on the glut in the production of paddy and wheat. Huge stocks of paddy, wheat, red gram were transported through railways by FCI and Markfed in order to provide it through the public distribution system. And railways came to the rescue when other modes of the transportation was unavailable. But on the other hand, cold storage spaces were not available for farmers such as chili farmers, because chili is one such commodity which is stored in the cold storage and then sold later on. And there is a huge demand for this chili in the pickle season, which is now. But there was difficulty with respect to farmers in storing their chilies, even harvesting chilies, and then storing it in the cold storages. And in several states, the agricultural marketing boards, they came up with bulk marketing of fruits, mangoes, chiku, grapes, mosambis, and so on. Though the procurement of these fruits was not a problem, logistics, right from farmer to city, it was problem because of unavailability of the transportation facilities. And interestingly, there were several lessons that COVID taught us. That is, it told us what is our priority and what is not. Though the farmers who were growing wheat, paddy, red gram might not have suffered a lot, beetle leaf farmers, once the beetle leaf comes once it matures, within 5 to 10 days, it has to be harvested. It could not happen. Beetle leaf farmers, beetle nut farmers suffered a lot. And as the other speakers pointed out, no restaurants, no hotels means lower demand for exotic vegetables and fruits. That is, all those who were growing perishables, they suffered the loss. huge losses were there. Particularly pineapple growers from Shimoga district of Karnataka, then banana growers from Anantapur. All these, they suffered losses. Then there's a popular mango variety which is called Himayat. It is actually a premium variety which is sold, which is never sold below 200 rupees per kg. Even in the auctions, it was sold at as low as 30 rupees per kg. That was the kind of scenario. But taking this demand and taking this supply into consideration, now where is the opportunity for FPOs? See, before actually even I go ahead with what is the kind of market opportunity for FPOs, I'll talk about the market linkage platform that we have at Samunnati. And Samunnati, it is a value chain finance organization, but instead of saying it is a value chain finance organization, let's say that it is an organization which provides solutions to the various problems which are faced at various nodes of agricultural value chain. So we call ourselves as a solution provider rather than a value chain finance organization. Maybe that is one of the reasons we have come up with a platform. So we here in Samunnati, we strive to ensure that the markets work for the smallholder farmers. Now, this is the vision chasing which we are proceeding with our all the day-to-day activities and strategies aligned to the goal that we would like to achieve. Okay, and then through this platform, the buyers are posting their requirement, sellers are posting their availability that look, these things are available. Because what has happened is, particularly in banana, in certain districts of Andhra Pradesh, was abundantly available with the farmers. When we called one of the farmer, we were checking the availability of banana. He said, "Man, there's nothing left with me now. 70 tons of banana, I just lost it. I had to actually ask people to send their animals so that they can graze off the bananas which were left. You know, that was the kind of problem which he faced. On the other hand, there were buyers who were getting it difficult to take bananas to Bangalore, which was just 5 hours from Anantapur, where these bananas are grown. So this is the platform which ensures the matchmaking between these buyers and sellers is what Samunnati has come up with. Here, I'll just share those experiences that we have in terms of handling this market linkage platform. See, on one side, we have seen certain farmer producer organizations. For example, there's an organization in Kurnool which were growing brown top millet, who have some 5 tons of brown top millet with them. They wanted to actually sell brown top millet. So it is in the raw form, unprocessed form. They checked with us. They has actually posted their requirement. They checked with us. We checked with the buyers. We told them, look, now millets are not in demand. But maybe some 15 to 20 days down the lane, there are buyers who would like to buy this brown top millet as well, though at reduced rate, but they would like to buy a processed one. Now look at this FPO. Within that week, they inquired about where is that they could process this brown top millet, because brown top millet is one millet which requires a different kind of processing when compared to other millets. They ensured, they looked at all the avenues where it can be done, what is the price, what is the kind of transportation required if they have to supply to Hyderabad. They also inquired whether en route there is any processor who could process this and then they could bring it to Hyderabad. And then they discussed with all the farmers, their CEO, and they were ready with a certain price with them. Okay, and then once we announced that, see, look, this is the price at which the buyer is going to buy from you, they were ready with all the logistics, all the kind of information. You know, this is the kind of entrepreneurial spirit that they had. And now there are few other farmers from Tamil Nadu who wanted to sell their vegetables directly to the consumer. So they came up with a mobile van. And in the mobile van, because when vegetables are being sold to these consumers, you cannot say, or the farmer cannot say that, look, I can only produce bottle gourd, I'll sell bottle gourd to you today. No. When it is a retail platform, people will require at least 10 to 15 kinds of vegetables, including maybe leafy vegetable, including carrot, including beetroot, including mirchi and all that. They were not producing carrot and beetroot over there. So they procured this carrot and beetroot from other location, and they ensured that their retail van had all these 15 vegetables. So that is the kind of entrepreneurial spirit that they displayed. So they responded to the needs of the consumer. And the other thing that they have done is, while fixing the price, they also accounted for 15 to 20% damage of the perishable goods. Because this being retail, they will not have a choice when they have to take the wastage into consideration. That is the kind of spirit that they displayed, and they went on actually selling. And is similar to what the other speakers have also shown, where they have retail units for selling these vegetables and have done great business. But on the other hand, there were other FPOs, there were other farmers. For example, there was an opportunity, there was a buyer who wanted to buy papaya. And there was a farmer who actually posted on our site saying that, look, I have papaya and I would like to sell papaya. And he was actually offering to sell papaya at around 10 rupees per kg. And because of COVID, there were no traders who were coming to his field and then picking up papaya from there. So the price that the buyer quoted, what interested the seller. He said, okay, I would like to sell this at the rate that the buyer has quoted. We thought that the deal will go ahead. But there were few twists here in the story wherein buyer wanted 1 to 1.5 kgs of papaya, not the other papaya, which was, whose weight was lower than 1 or 1.5 kgs. And he wanted the papaya to be wrapped in newspaper before it is, and then transported to Hyderabad. And the other thing is, the amount would be paid in cash at Hyderabad. And this place where the seller comes from is 5 hours from Hyderabad. And that is where the problem started. So the farmer said, now grading of papaya, if I involve laborers, they'll pick up all the papayas, irrespective of weight. What will I do with the remaining papaya? I do not know how to wrap papaya. All my life, I sold papaya at my farm. It was a trader who came and who picked up. I can even sell it to you at 8 rupees per kg. I don't have a problem. But I don't want to take care of transportation. What if someone stops my vehicle midway? I don't know what are the papers that are required to send this vehicle from here to Hyderabad. So we couldn't actually finish this deal. We said, okay. So then we thought and we said, okay, so let us actually go to an FPO. Maybe FPO is a better place wherein there will be a group of farmers who would be able to take more risks when compared to this farmer. So the same discussions, it went on with the FPO as well. So with the FPO, there were other difficulties that came up. That is, they said the order was of 2 tons initially because the buyer actually wanted to see the quality of the fruit and assured us that weekly I'm going to give you an order of 5 to 6 tons. But I want to look at the sample. Send me 2 tons. I'll make the payment. And then I'll order 5 to 6 tons. But there was a difficulty in transportation for 2 tons. But there was a business ahead which was 5 to 6 tons per week. But from the FPO, yes, the response was cold. They said, see, we don't know what will happen after we send these 2 tons, whether the buyer is going to buy 5 to 6 tons, what is that he's going to do? We are not sure. For 2 tons, the transportation cost is very high. Actually, they were barely able to, it was neck to neck. Whatever was the cost, they were able to actually get that in terms of price. No profit, no loss. But it is a risk to be taken, whether I want to send it to Hyderabad, wrapping it, or I don't want to. And there was a huge delay in terms of decision making because they had to interact with farmers, 1, 2, 3 farmers for everything, and then get back to us. There was a second thing, then there was a discussion, then getting back to us. So it was getting difficult, and then we took some more time, a day more, from the buyer who agreed, who really wanted to, who was a young entrepreneur who was actually linking farmers to the last mile. He was actually linking it to the customers directly and was very good in terms of logistics. So he considered for a day, but the next day the deal was gone. So similar thing happened with the other commodities as well. So that is how there are certain FPOs wherein which are, risk taking, and then who are able to show that entrepreneurial spirit, who are actually making it. Otherwise, with those FPOs who are not able to actually show that kind of entrepreneurial spirit, then it is getting very difficult to actually link them with the buyers. And believe me, now there are new set of buyers. And as we are talking about, a new supply chain which is emerging during COVID. Okay, and what I always feel is there is a pre-COVID time, COVID time, and hopefully a post-COVID time. The situation now is different. The logistics are far more different. Now there is a possibility wherein a farmer can be linked directly to a consumer, or at least to a retailer, the last mile corporate retailer, at least we can link and then ensure that whatever consumer pays, in that amount, a large share, a large chunk goes to the farmer. But it requires that kind of risk-taking ability. And I'm not sure if it is too much to ask for a farmer to take more risk, because what I feel is farmers are the oldest breed of entrepreneurs. Okay, they sow their own seed, they take a decision what to sow, when to sow, where to get their inputs from. The production happens in their field and they market the produce. So all this, that is in terms of the entire risk, it is with the farmer. But yes, when it comes to the FPO, maybe FPO is a business entity which can be far more risk taking, that is in terms of a calculated risk. It doesn't mean that it should be a risk wherein we are going to face a loss. No. So these are the two kinds of FPOs that we have seen which were distinct. So that is why I'm saying that I'm talking about the micro scenario which is actually happening in the field. So there are few who are able to think about, because even in terms of research, if you see now the demand for wheat, it has gone up. When ITC was actually looking at the orders or the sales that has happened in the last 2 months of lockdown, they said Ashirwad Atta, Yippee noodles, Sunfeast biscuits. These are the 3 items which are on the top list of the consumers, whatever they bought. And then in bulk, it was 10 kg Ashirwad Atta which they were buying, not 1 kg or 2 kgs. Because that is the COVID situation. The post-COVID could be different. The pre-COVID was entirely different. Small quantities, even the rural markets, things being sold in sachets instead of huge packets. So are we actually into that kind of research, looking at the opportunity, taking calculated risks, moving ahead? Because here is an opportunity. Because if you see, the 10,000 crore personal protective industry has popped up in the last 2 months. Just in the last 2 months, it has come up. There was nothing 2 months ago. Now, India is the world's second largest supplier of medical protective equipment after China. Goggles, face shields, masks, gloves, coveralls, gowns, head and shoe covers. You name it, everything is being produced in the country. And this is the entrepreneurial spirit which has been displayed, as an answer to an opportunity, or should I say to a problem, which is COVID. Because all these problems, they have these opportunities, whether we are taking it up or not, is what differentiates one FPO with the other. I don't want to say that all the FPOs will be able to gear up similarly, but similar to the spirit that few of the FPOs have shown in terms of maybe those FPOs I talked about in Tamil Nadu, or those FPOs who are into brown top millet, all these who have shown that spirit. There are FPOs who are directly selling mangoes to the residential societies. Lockdown, everybody was worried, what is going to happen to my favorite fruit, mango, which will not come before the next year. But here there are mangoes which we are consuming. This is because of the entrepreneurial spirit of several FPOs, several farmers, several non-government organizations, who are procuring it from farmers and then shifting it to societies taking bulk orders. So there's an opportunity, and such supply chains, few of these supply chains, the diversified supply chains are going to stay even after COVID, right? There's just one thing I would like to end with. There was a session that we were attending to, an e-session maybe on the other day, wherein the speaker was talking about 3 kinds of hindrances which actually do not allow us to take up something or act or do something. The first thing he was talking about is, I'm not allowed to do. This is the COVID situation. I don't know what I'm not allowed to do. Maybe I'm not allowed to take a transportation vehicle and then send my fruit somewhere. Maybe I'm not allowed to use laborers. to pluck, or this not allowed is something that comes as the first hindrance. The second is I cannot do. I cannot actually take all this pain and then ask laborers to come pluck my fruits and then pack it, then transport it. I cannot do. Third, I will not do. I'm just getting maybe 5 rupees here in my farm. Why do I want to sell it at 15 rupees at some other place? I have something over here. I don't want to do. I will not do it. Though I have the capability, though I know I'm allowed to do it, I'm not going to do it. So these are the three barriers, three hindrances, which actually ensure that we don't do something. So maybe that's where I felt when we were actually interacting with all these players. Okay, so this is where I end. And to all the FPOs, or if there are any buyers as well. So there is a market linkage platform that is from Samunnati that is particularly for the COVID. And then we hope that these alternate supply chains will go into that is they'll survive the post-COVID scenario as well. So that is where we would like to come up with, we'd like to facilitate new supply chains. So that is where, that is in case there is any availability or requirement, you could actually post on that platform, and we have our people who do the matchmaking. So that is all from my side. Thank you very much, NIMSME, for giving me this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Ma'am, now we will move into the question and answer round. So we have already received one question for Dr. Patnaik. Sir, so the question for you is, how do the NPOs in tribal areas get access to the national marketing? What is the modality?
Is it supposed to be for me? Please
Yes,
repeat.
yes, sir. Uh,
Yeah.
How do the NPOs in tribal areas get access to the national marketing? What is the modality?
See, the tribal areas of our country basically are very good in producing fruits and vegetables. And the tribal population, they are whether they are located in the northeast or in the tribal pockets of different states. Now they are far flung. See, today you have seen that you can now activate the there is a platform which is actually under construction for the organic farmers, where a matchmaking like what Samanati does is done. In the sense you are able to display a photo of the produce and your price and put it on that platform. Then on the other end, if there are buyers, they can actually make use of that. The Enam link has now done it, but we have one for organic producers. So since most of the tribal areas are doing this organic produce, they can perhaps access this and can make use of it in a very big way. But as rightly said, the subject matter of today's discussion is basically FPO, where the FPO is supposed to identify where are the market linkages, how is he going to aggressively pursue with different people. I can give you a very successful example. Let me tell you. There is a which exactly fits the question which you have asked. The question is, there is a Aruku Valley in Andhra Pradesh. Aruku Valley. Now, in Aruku Valley, the tribal population which produces, they in fact sell all their produce in Visakhapatnam, and surplus which flows from Visakhapatnam to Hyderabad. And they are able to grow English vegetables round the year because the very salubrious environment is there, and they can grow this. And in fact, it's a bustling with lot of activity. This is a typical example. I can tell you areas in Belgaum. Again, they are growing a lot of fruits and vegetables who are supplying to the population of Goa. Belgaum is in Karnataka. Again, it is also, there are some tribal population in the far-flung, in the forest areas there. So every place it can be done. And in this country is ideally located. People of Uttarakhand can supply everything to Delhi. And our metros and big cities are quite widely dispersed. If you make a market survey, you'll find that there is a lot of demand, but we are not able to really cater to the demand of the niche market, and this can be made use of.
Sir. So
Well,
the next question we have is for Shrikant sir. What could be the appropriate strategy by which we can mitigate the production loss of numerous poor FPOs caused by COVID-19?
So this is a very interesting question. Uh, there are some production loss that we are right now incurring, and most of the loss is happening in the perishable segment. So if you talk about the dairy industry, as I previously also informed, that there is a lack of demand in the open market. So there is a huge scope that we can have some skimmed milk powder factories. Now, for processing skimmed powder of around 4 to 5,000 liters, we require a initial step of around 40 to 50 lakh rupees. And this kind of ad hoc arrangements can be done with respect to various chilling plants, milk chilling plants, or with respect to other units, dairy processing units, where if we can process this extra milk which we are getting and which otherwise gets wasted, but into skimmed milk powder, it can be further in production of any other dairy commodities in the days to come. Then the second category could be something like that of fruits and vegetables. Now, here I would like to highlight one of the NGO, that is the Seed NGO located in Hyderabad. They are doing an extensive work with respect to solar drying. And I have found that solar drying model is much successful in Indian context vis-a-vis the cold storage. Because in India, if you want to set up a cold storage, we need to spend a lot of power in that. Power consumption is very high. But if we have abundant solar with us, if we can convert it into dehydrated vegetables or dehydrated fruits, it can be used in the days to come and it can be preserved. And this small processing, if it is set up in scattered manner, in decentralized manner in different parts of the country, I think we can definitely overcome the losses in the perishable category. Thank you.
Okay, sir. We will take up one last question. Why the number of FPOs operating in fisheries and aquaculture sector is very low? Can any of the speaker answer?
So I'd like to answer this question.
Okay, sir.
Now, if you talk about the total agriculture GDP, in that the component of the seafood or aquaculture is obviously comparatively less as compared to the field crops, horticulture, and other animal husbandry sector. Now, I think the number of FPOs are quite proportionate to the contribution of GDP to the agriculture. And in yes, right now we are having less aqua and fishery, because I think we are also getting a huge demand for that. There's a huge demand, and farmers are not feeling the necessity to come together and aggregate in that regard, as compared to the pressure or the want or the need for aggregation in terms of the perishable categories, specifically the milk, the fruits and vegetable segment. I think if any other panelists want to add something, they can.
Yeah, I would just like to add to what you have said. You're right. Actually, it is not true to say that there are no FPOs, because FPO is a new concept now, and we are including now even the cooperative societies. In the fisheries sector, I can give you examples from Karnataka. We have very powerful and active fishery cooperatives located all along the coastline, especially for marine fisheries. And these fishery cooperatives are three-tiered structures. there are the primary cooperative societies, then they have the district level cooperative societies, and then they're federated. In fact, many of the states we have fish federation. In fact, what is the role of the FPO is actually been carried out through this three-tier structure of the cooperatives. And these cooperatives own ice plants, they own fish processing units. So there is already a very extensive chain which is already there in the field. So therefore, there is no need to form FPO separate. But rightly, where the marketing facilities are not very well developed, there is scope to even have FPOs for those small group of people. And secondly, the demand for fisheries, fishing and all this, the very organized retail trade is already, the market linkages are very well established. They don't have to take their fish to the compulsorily to the APMC mandis. Please understand that. So therefore, you are freed of that. So therefore, there is no problem. In fact, today the problem in the traditional cereal and fruits and vegetable market is you are forcing them to go to APMC mandis. Once that particular restriction is removed, the marketing will be much better. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. I would like to thank all the speakers for their invaluable inputs. And due to the time constraint, we won't be able to take up all the questions. So now I request Shrikant sir to please propose a vote of thanks to our speakers.
Thank you very much, Soumya. I extend my heartfelt gratitude and regards to Dr. S.K. Patnaik sir, Director General ASCI, for accepting and delivering his keynote address. Thanks are due to Dr. Rasmi Singh from IARI, Madam Purvi Sarkar, Nini Priya Madam from Samunati for their detailed presentation with practical suggestions. I thank Dr. Harsh Sharma from Center for Innovation in Public System, ASCI, and Samunati for partnering with us in organizing this webinar. I thank my Director General Madam, Mrs. Glory Swarupa Madam, for being the encouraging force in organizing this webinar. I thank Director Marketing and his team, especially Ms. Soumya, for well coordinating all the activities from the one till today. And I hope we'll be also sending all the PowerPoint presentations to all the participants. I also thank our Register Office for coordinating all the activities. My thanks are due to the participants and the FPOs who have very nicely participated in great numbers from all throughout the country. And also I see some of the participants from my because of you all, the webinar has been a successful webinar. I thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much.